So now it is debate time. Honoured pupils, teachers and guests, my name is Adam Freeman and I am the chairman of the debate. This session will be filmed and the youth debate will be webcast live so friends, family and schools can watch in the comfort of their school or home. The link to the webcast will be posted on our social media accounts and is included in the conference packs. So the topic of today's debate is this House believes that Essex Police should have a dedicated school liaison officer serving in the Epping Forest District. For anyone that doesn't know, a school liaison officer is a dedicated police officer that is based in schools in order to try and build, relationships, there we go, there's the word, relationships with young people. So now I'm going to split the chamber in half. Lisa, do you want to move to your right? Yeah. Everyone on my right side will be for the motion, so you'll be arguing that schools should have a police liaison officer, and everyone on my left will be against the motion, so you will be arguing that schools should not have a school liaison officer. I will now introduce the Honourable Christopher Collins to give his proposing speech for the argument.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, esteemed guests, delegates, and may I say what an honour it is to be assigned the role of proposing this debate. Because while we may not agree with the other side, and some of us won't even agree with the side we've been assigned, I know that we can all agree what an important issue this is. In 1993, the future Prime Minister, Tony Blair, famously promised to be tough on crime and tough on the causes of crime. But what are the causes of crime? What motivates a human being to commit a crime? To break the fundamental laws on which our society is built and to do wrong by another? Desperation? Perhaps. Drugs and alcohol, the focus of the project, which Dr. Burgout pointed out the Youth Council will present at this conference. Very possibly. But what about causes closer to home for young people? The majority of adult criminals ran into trouble with the police for the first time as a child or young person. 46% of prisoners left school with a literacy of an 11-year-old. And American studies have suggested that sadly many young people have little trust in the police or our legal system. All too often, crime doesn't start in the dark alley or some dimly lit gang headquarters. It starts in the classroom, the playground and the schoolyard. In 2015-16, taxpayers spent £34 billion on law and order, fighting some 6.4 million crimes in England and Wales alone, from pickpocketing and online frauds to terrorism and murder most foul. While our police undeniably do a marvellous job in keeping us safe, it could be said that any new approaches would only help, and some would say that the best way to be tough on crime is indeed to be tough on its causes. Having dedicated policemen serve as police school liaison officers would allow young people to become more comfortable and build relationships with those who protect them. It would allow young people to be more confident in reporting crime, and it would give young people pride in our country's great tradition of fairness, justice and lawfulness, instead of making some want to rebel against it. In short, it would allow justice to be done and justice to be seen to be done, cutting crime and raising awareness of the law at a fraction of the vast sums currently being spent. Mr. Chairman, in the spirit of cooperation between cops and community, which has made Britain great, this side does humbly beg to move that this House believes Essex Police should have a dedicated police schools liaison officer serving the Epping Forest District. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christopher. Now would the Honourable Finlay Jordan like to give his opposing speech to the argument? Is your microphone not on there?
Thank you, Chair. 1,180. According to the Ministry of Justice, that's the number of under 18s penalised for knife possession in a period of just 3 months. Over 1,000 school kids made a choice to bring in a weapon to school, and many threatened to injure their classmates and teachers. The real question at heart here is what motivates a young person to commit a crime, and how do we stop them? Let's be realistic. A young person who brings a knife into school and threatens to stab people isn't going to stop because a police officer sometimes comes into a school and tells them it's not cool to carry a knife. A young person who's in a gang isn't going to leave because of a school assembly. And a young person who mugs people on the street isn't going to stay at home and read a book because he was given a leaflet. The idea of having a school liaison officer is an absurd and archaic idea which may have worked in years gone by but has no place in today's society. Would it a better investment of public money be trying to root out the causes of crime at a young age? Many young people are forced into crime through causes like poverty, lack of future prospects, gangs. Instead of funding a liaison officer, we should be giving young people activities to do, reopening youth clubs, shutting down gangs and making sure young people have opportunities once they leave school at 16. Society as a whole should be focused on reducing crime rates for under 18s, not by having one police officer which may give an assembly a couple of times at local schools. I'm sure many of you know about the financial difficulties this country faces. National debt is just under £2 trillion, and between April 2016 and March 2017, the government spent £52 billion more than it earned through taxes. The NHS is at breaking point. Many public services have been cut, and as we saw earlier, Essex Police Force is one of the least funded per person. Is this really the best use of taxpayers' money? Isn't there better things this money could be spent on? Shouldn't we be cutting down on spending it instead of sending it on a plan which would likely not even give results? Delegates, I would like to ask you to tell us 3 things in our debate. Will the plan work? Will it benefit young people? And is it worth it? And to that, the answer is no, it will not. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Finlay. Now I'm going to open the debate to everyone. At 11:40, I will then stop the debate and sum up the case. It is useful to know that when I address you to speak, you press your microphone button once to turn it on, and then after you finish your statement, you press it again to turn it off. So at the end, I will ask you yes if you agree with the motion, or no if you disagree. This is not based on the side that you're on, this is what you genuinely believe in to get a result at the end. So if you wish to abstain, you can do that as well. But now, here we go. Who wants to go first? Yes.
Okay, so,
Microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. So I've been thinking about this quite a lot, and I feel that a dedicated liaison officer will be focused, and I feel that they won't be distracted by other schools in a different area, and they'll be so concentrated that they'll be able to speak for a school, and I think that they'll be a good advocate and make relationships and build trust within the school community. And I feel that eventually, their understanding will be so good that, if trouble in an area were to occur, then they would be able to speak for a school and, solve the problem. On the other hand, you may say that a dedicated liaison officer would have narrow focus because, say I was one and I was in Upshire or something like that. If, say, Loughton were going through problems and they wanted to learn from how I solved with Upshire, then wouldn't that mean that it's quite limited to how much they can help? And wouldn't you want to spend so much money that they could sort of go round a bigger, they could be able to do 3 areas? Then the money wouldn't be because financially this could be a problem. So to solve that, you would be spending a lot of money for a good cause. But in conclusion, I think that it would be a good idea, because in the near future, they could be really important to help another school and make them aware of issues that are around the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. But realistically, with the funding problems you get, you'd only really have one police liaison officer for the entire district. And in this district, we've got 7 state schools, a number of private schools, plus primary schools. So, of course, if with that amount of schools, you'd only really be getting to see your police liaison officer maybe once a term, once a half term to give one assembly. There's just not enough funding to give one for every school, and realistically, you just wouldn't get to see them as much. You wouldn't get to see them enough, so you'd actually really get any benefit out of the project.
26.
Okay, Finn, you said that from a booklet or an assembly, the person's mind wouldn't change. But the people who never really wanted to commit a crime, can tell the person who does, and after a while, the person's mind kind of starts doubting themselves of why do I want to commit the crime? Because everybody around them doesn't want to. And if, let's say, the person who wants to commit a crime has a really close friend, he will probably listen to them if the friend has enough evidence to say that it's bad.
Thank you. Anyone from the left-hand side like to give an opposing argument? Go on, Davin.
I don't think if someone's going to commit a crime, they're not going to go around telling their friends that they're going to do it. So it's not really going to benefit if someone's saying don't do it, because they're not really going to know. You're not going to know who's going to commit the crime, whether it's your friend or not.
Thank you. 21.
Finlay, you said that that instead of having a police liaison in schools, that they should come and that they should do, like, put money into youth activities and things like that. But I don't see how that's going to benefit anyone, especially if at schools, even if it is one assembly, they can actually grow from that, and they're in school, so it's not taking up their time. So why would they want to waste their time going to a youth club or something like that when that's taking up their own time? And it's more money that is being...
Thank you. 15.
Sort of to counter that point, I think the point trying to be made is instead of like young people having no activities to do and then turning to crime, which does happen in quite a lot of poor areas, as just something to do in the evenings, I think it's more about why young people commit crime and sort of looking at possible examples of ways to stop them committing crime sort of individually for stuff like if they commit crime, because it's like maybe if that's just the area, there's nothing really to do in the evenings, maybe it'd be better to give them something more productive to do and give them a sort of a purpose, rather which meant if they're doing that, then it means they're not going out committing crime.
Thank you. 22.
For the opposition, you mentioned about the NHS budget, but surely by having a police liaison officer and by preventing this like gang formation and like, you know, the crimes from evolving at the heart of it, you know, at school, the roots, surely that would lead to less crime in the long term. You know, that would lead to less police officers being required on the streets, less crime prevention, and overall that would lead to a lower budget required and a lower cost.
Thank you. 6.
People have free time on their hands and they're going to look for things to do. So if they need to take part in more youth clubs and stuff like that, and if they don't, then they're going to turn to crime because they have nothing else to do.
Thank you. 29.
In most assemblies, police officers do and things like that. They do mention the clubs and things that you can join. So although you might be spending money on getting people to talk about the issues, they're also spreading awareness of the clubs that can occupy time deterring people away from crime. So although it may be spending more money, it's also boosting the amount of people that are going to clubs and things like that, taking their mind off crime and possible thoughts they have. Thank you.
Thank you. 9.
You mentioned turning people away from crime, but if there's like police in schools, they'll only be telling the students. They won't be like going around the streets telling like the older people who already do crime to not.
Thank you. 46.
I think the lady opposite makes an important point about making sure that these liaison officers are available to the wider school population. I think the key advantage of a scheme like this is it would allow young people to really get a relationship with policemen in much the same spirit. I don't know if I mentioned that this youth council is supporting a Kappa with a Copper campaign where you can go and have a cup of tea with a policeman and, you know, get to know them. And I think actually that would prevent crime because it would mean people would not want to rebel against the system if they feel comfortable with those enforcing it.
Thank you. 67.
I believe that
when we see a police officer or when we have a police officer in our atmosphere, we feel a bit tense. And I think that having a police officer at our school will make the atmosphere very tense. And when we think about walking around the street and seeing the police officer, you feel like, am I doing something wrong, or is he going to say anything to me? And I won't think this will help. And it will just make us more scared of the police rather than actually befriending them.
Thank you. 28.
Going back to Finn's point, you said about opening youth centres. Where are gangs most likely going to form? Where there are other people like that? Where's that? Youth centres. I think if we spend the money on police liaison, that will prevent people from going to stuff like that and meeting up with the wrong kind of people, because they'll know that the law's not against them and it won't be against them unless they do the wrong thing.
Thank you. Would anyone from the left side like to make a point? I must encourage you all to speak your voice, as this opportunity only comes around once every 2 years. So please, everyone, get involved, say your mind. Thank you. 48.
Let's be honest here, who actually listens in assemblies? Who isn't at the back falling asleep? You know, if there's a police officer saying, oh, don't do crime, if you're already doing crime, you're not going to stop because a police officer says don't do it. So if you're spending the money on a police liaison at a school, then no one's going to actually listen to that police liaison. They're more likely to pay attention if they're out in the streets.
Thank you. 25.
Coming back to the bit where you said about how seeing a police officer makes you tense, I have to disagree with that, because what's the point of having police officers if you drive them away? A police officer is supposed to make you safe. It's supposed to make you feel secure, and that where you are is aware, like you're not afraid that something is around the corner that's gonna just disturb you or hurt you in any way. So if you say we shouldn't have a liaison, what's to stop people from feeling insecure and still doing it anyway?
Thank you. 51.
Someone said earlier about having a cup of tea with a police officer, but police officers are usually very busy, so when are they going to have the time to sit down individually with around like 200 people and have a cup of tea?
Thank you. 69.
So, as we can hear so far, everyone's been saying it's a waste of time, it's a waste of money. But like every organisation, all it needs is that little kick. And I mean, last time I checked, the youth council was a little kick. We just needed that little budget to start us off, and look where we are now. So I mean, with the police I can't say the word properly, liaisons, all we need to do is that little kick with that little bit of money to kick something amazing off for schools in the community.
Thank you. Raj.
Going back to what the honourable gentleman over there said, some people may feel safe. However, the general intimidation may arise because people might be constantly checking themselves. Am I doing something wrong? Am I doing that something that a police officer would approach me? So it'd be constantly tense.
Thank you. Lisa.
I see it as like this. So if you're going to be in a classroom, there's a difference between a teacher telling you that you're going to be in trouble and a police saying you're going to be in trouble. There's a complete difference. And I feel like students will be more likely to listen to what a police is saying if we have them in school. Whereas if a teacher's going to tell you you're going to get in trouble because of this, they wouldn't mind as much. But if we have a police there telling them you are going to get into trouble if you carry on doing this, then they're more likely to stop what they're doing.
Number 9.
Lisa, going back to what you said, some people don't listen to police, some people don't give one, as you say. So they're going to continue to do crimes and nobody will be able to stop them when they get to a certain point.
Thank you. Number 20.
I feel that most people who commit crime,
it's mostly influenced by friends. So in school, if there was police that sit down with a group of people, they're like influenced by family and friends. So once your friends are all on one side, like, I'm not going to do that no more and everything, and your family are like looking down on you and everything, you're most likely to stop, because you feel you're letting everyone down and no one's really following you and everything. Because people mostly commit crime because of, like, I don't know the word, but like the hype after it. How people are like, oh, you done this. But really, if everyone was like, I can't believe you did this, it'd be a different story.
Thank you. 52.
Most of the people wouldn't actually listen, because most of the people have been persuaded from a really young age. So try and go back on themselves. They're a completely different person then, so nothing would change them. Whereas there would be a small majority that would actually change, which are the people that have just started in the last few years.
58.
You said that people are tense around the police, but maybe if there was liaison officers, it would break the stereotype to be afraid around the police. So if there was someone there that was kind of encouraging you to do well in life, and it was a police officer, it would form stronger bonds with authority. And also there might be people there who aren't committing crimes at a younger age, but maybe when they're older they might want to turn to crime, but it might make them think twice before they do.
Thank you. Number 10.
You say you may not be tense around police, but police are usually known to be near crimes.
Thank you. 23.
You said that people are usually tense around police. Well, that can kind of be a good thing, because if you know you want to commit a crime and then there's a liaison officer that comes into the school and you start feeling tense, then you're more likely to not commit the crime. So, yeah.
Thank you. 67.
I wouldn't want to mix the feeling of being safe and being uncomfortable, because if I had police walking around the school, it would make me feel uncomfortable. And well, there is that idea of safety, but it will make me feel more uncomfortable, and that makes me think that there's a high risk of crime here. Then why is the police here? Because obviously there might be a high risk of crime. So it carries on. If it's already tense when the police is there, and it gives you the idea of there might be crime. That's why the police officer's walking around.
Thank you. 77.
I think that having a police officer around the school would help you to build a relationship with the officer, and that might give young people more respect for police, and therefore they might not commit crimes.
Thank you. Jude.
I think that's where, if you've got a policeman trolling round your school, then going back to your point over there, you would feel more tense, because you know that they're only there because there's a crime. So you'll be like, oh no, who's done it? And you'll be very worried because they might suspect it's you or something like that. So then if you're like, oh, I'm already a suspect, you might turn to crime because of that.
Thank you. 27.
Many people have mentioned money being a problem, but I think it's a good use of money, because the policeman could advise students and staff on how to stay safe in dangerous situations, and could inform them on possible changes in the law. Thank you.
Thank you. 49.
People who are going to commit a crime already know that the police are out there. What's the point in putting money that we could be spending on something else just to tell people that the police are going to do something to them if they commit a crime? They already know if they're planning on doing that.
Thank you. 59.
I'd have to kind of disagree with that, because take primary schools, for example. If you were to put a liaison officer in primary school assemblies, it drills from a young age that the crimes you can commit and the things you can do wrong in society. And instead of it being uncomfortable, I think if you take it, again, from a young age, that they become more comfortable as time goes on, and it encourages them to speak to the police as well as they get into secondary school if they see things such as gangs and drug or alcohol abuse. So I think it will help them.
Thank you. 19.
I don't think a police liaison officer is good because, like, around the school, there's only like one person, and why would you listen to that one person? And like, if you have like youth clubs and other stuff like that, like there's like a group of people that can persuade you to like be good and stuff. Yeah.
Thank you. 29.
I feel that there are two types of people on this side. Those that are saying that a police officer makes them feel tense and uncomfortable, and yet the other people saying they don't care what the person's saying because it's, you know, just one person and whatever, they're not going to listen to them. But surely if you're feeling tense, then that would make you listen more than anyone else could, or it shows that you have, like, you know their authority, which means that you would listen to them. So saying that you feel tense around them just proves that you would listen to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegates, I must remind you that there is 5 minutes left, so any points you have, please try to bring them to a close. Yes.
Alright, so the phrase tense is being used a lot in this debate, and I feel it's true. Liaison officers tend to feel us, we feel intimidated by them, and we all have to remember that we, as young pupils, are developed by our idle curiosity, and this will develop us to talk to other people about the situation, which will cause our education being involved as well when we're in lessons. So this will cause us to be distracted by the liaison officers that are in our school as well. So thank you.
Thanks. 80.
Going back to the persuasion point, personally I believe that if you could grow a personal relationship with a liaison officer, if that one person could persuade a group and then that group could persuade another group, then eventually an entire school could be persuaded by this one liaison officer. And this liaison officer dedicates his entire time to the school. He's not out fighting crime as well. He spends his entire time, or her entire time, dedicated to the school. So it's not a waste of funding because he's not being prevented from doing other things. This is what he's been trained, and this is his job description to do.
Thank you. Is that 99?
You're all saying build a relationship with this police officer. However, how much time is he actually, or he or she's actually going to have? They'll probably do their assembly once every term and then leave. So will they be able to actually build relationships with the students?
Thank you. 24.
A lot of you are saying how you'd feel tense if there was a police officer around. But if you had a friend who was committing crime and you didn't agree with what they were doing and you needed to speak to someone, and you didn't feel you could speak to like a teacher, you'd want to speak to a police officer. Therefore, you wouldn't feel tense, and then you can have the chance to stop the crime that's going on.
Thank you. Nina.
I think the school liaison officer programme was already introduced quite a few years ago and was then phased out. So if that happened, then isn't that telling us something about how successful the project was? Because if we have no use for it anymore, how much good has it actually done? Also, crime's going to exist whether you have police officers on every single corner of the street or not. So, yeah.
Thank you. 61.
People have said that if there's a school liaison officer around the school, then they're going to feel tense, but surely it would make you feel better about yourself, because if there is crime there, you're going to be scared anyway, and the police officers are there to prevent it, so surely that's not going to make you feel scared, that's going to make you feel more safe.
Thank you. 51.
School is supposed to be a safe environment, so why is there a police officer in a safe environment?
Thank you. We have 1 minute left, so I will be taking 1 point from either side. I apologise if I can't come to everyone. I've already spoken to you twice, so I'm trying to make it as fair as possible, so I'll have 1 more point, 62.
About the building relationships. School liaison officers are there to help students that are at risk, students that face troubles at home or are under peer pressure. Even if they could just spend 1 minute with this person, this could change their entire life. Pupils like this need someone they know they can trust, someone who won't judge them, and that is what a school liaison officer can do.
Thank you. Finally, I'll go to 3.
When we get called into the teacher's office, everyone still feels tense, even though we know we've probably not done anything wrong. So if we have a police officer in there, isn't that going to make things 10 times worse? And we're always going to have that tense feeling with us.
Thank you. Now, I call time. That is the end of the debate. I would like to invite Christopher to make a closing remark.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, again, for your professionalism, to our revered guests for putting up with the sound of my voice, and to the opposition for their skill, even though they secretly agree with us. They have said that police school liaison officers would be a waste of money, but any measure that cuts down crime and prevents it from occurring in the future, long term, would save us money, surely. They have told us that people would not feel comfortable around the police, that it would encourage them perhaps to commit crimes they're already thinking of doing so. But this is not merely about stopping those who are considering committing crime, stopping them doing it. It is about making sure that the innocent have sufficient confidence in our justice system to make sure they don't tread the path of the guilty. And they have said that it is a waste of the police's time. But is it a waste of a doctor's time when he vaccinates someone instead of waiting for them to become ill and then treating them afterwards? School liaison officers are the vaccine against the disease, the very costly and socially and financially disease that is crime. It would cut costs, it would cut crime, and I urge you with your head and your heart to do the right thing in voting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And would Finlay like to make his closing remark?
Thank you, Chair. So I think we've heard today from the delegates that having a police officer in schools wouldn't make them feel safer and better in touch with the police. It would make them feel tense and scared. And really, to have any meaningful relationship with police officers, you need at least one in every school. And let's say we take a basic salary of £20,000 a year with at least 9 or 10 schools in the district. We're looking at a project costing over £200,000 a year. Is that really a good use of public money to be spending on a project which probably wouldn't work, where kids wouldn't even feel safe in their own schools, and probably wouldn't even cut the crime rate? Thank you.
Thank you, Finlay. Now, I'd like to thank everyone for getting involved. It was a very lively debate. It's nice to see almost everyone participating. So I think you all deserve a round of applause to start. We as the Youth Council are very thankful for all of the schools getting involved. It is very nice to see that so many of you are just interested in democracy. The question is, remember, and this is your own opinion, this is not what side you've been placed on, so say if you're on the opposing side and you believe that you should have a school liaison officer, then be sure to vote that. This is your own opinion. So the question is, should this House have a school... this dedicated House believes that Essex Police should have a dedicated police school liaison officer serving in the Epping Forest District. So press 1 if you agree, press 2 if you disagree. You have 10 seconds to vote once the music plays. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the results are in. This House believes that the Essex Police should not have a dedicated police school liaison officer serving in the Epping Forest District. Please place your handset back under your desk, as you will need them later.